I gotta get you a mic so people can hear you.
You don't want to hear what I have to say.
We always want to know what you have to say. All right, everybody, we're gonna get rolling. Today's focus is, so there's always a reason why we put together the webinars that we put together. And basically what happens is if I'm answering the same questions over and over again in emails or on Instagram or on YouTube or whatnot, I kind of make note of those and I go, okay, this is a pretty common thing that a lot of people are asking. Maybe I should do something a little bit deeper on this. So in the last, I would say 6 or 8 months, we have had more questions on programming than I think I've ever had. And as we went through the last webinar that we did that looked at the 6 articles or the 7 articles, whatever it was, that everybody should have read or should know about to train an aging adult or an older adult, really anybody over the age of 30 at this point can benefit from all that information. As we went through those 7 articles and then kind of specifically looked at, all right, now that we have that information, like what are the hands-on pieces that we're plugging in, like in the gym on training days? That's kind of the purpose of today. I'm going to give you some samples, but really I just want to go through the strategy or the philosophy of it. And some of these you might look at it and go, okay, that, yeah, that's so simple, we get it. But there's a lot more to it than that. So I'm going to try not to rant forever on any of these, which I know if you've been here with me before, that's going to be a rare thing if I can do that. But I promise I'll move through it. I only have like 7 slides. There's not a ton of content as far as how many pieces of articles we have to get through, but we will have quite a bit to discuss as we kind of go into it. So please feel free to take screen grabs. Feel free to take notes. And I'm going to discuss quite a bit. Keith will be chiming in here too a little bit, I'm sure, as we go. But the main idea to this one is, even though these aren't really like top secret kind of things, there are things that a lot of trainers and a lot of coaches don't really implement on a regular basis, and we should talk about them. So I want to dive into that. If this is your first time getting to see me speak or getting to know me at all, my name is Robert Linkul. I own trainingtheolderadult.com with my wife, Keegan. She is here with me. Give a camera shout out to the boss over here. There she is, helping run the show over the side. There's our new treadmill that we just got over there. We are searching for a location to put that permanently here as we continue to move our way through a post-outside rucking world, and I've moved to an indoor rucking world to avoid mountain lions mostly and really hot weather. Anyway, Keegan and I run trainingtheolderadult.com together. We are partnered with FitBody Bootcamp. We do a lot of the programming and continued education with FitBody, and we do a lot of education for personal training coaches and personal trainers out there working with aging bodies. You can go over to trainingtheolderadult.com, look at all the information we have. More information on my bio and my history and all that stuff. Basically 20 plus years of doing this, master's degree in personal training and kinesiology degree. All of that information, all these years, all these limitations. I've had a whole bunch of injuries as well, along with Keegan and along with a lot of our other clients. We bring all that stuff here to you and talk about all these things as we dive in. Now, the original image that I had made for this is the picture you see on the left. And I just kind of like drew it up on a little note thing, and I asked Keeg to make it, and she made that. And then she came back with a prettier one on the right. And so I wanted to feature both of those because I thought they were both pretty cool. And these are ones that if you want to take like a quick little screen grab of and maybe have as a little thing of, are we checking all of these on a daily basis? Basically, this is the entire webinar right here. And we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper, of course, into each one of these, but this gives you a good starting point. All right, so the first one, the 3 most important lifts to perform in every workout. Now, when I say every workout, we're going to look at the idea that most of your personal training clients are going to come in twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. If they are doing more than that, then you could look into a split routine, or something that might be a little bit more organized, a little bit more in depth than what I'm about to go through. But if they're only doing 2 days a week, and by only meaning that's fine, like it's fine for them to do 2 days a week. Ideally, resistance training, 3 days a week for the aging body would really be right on. And so just general guidelines for that. 3 days a week, at least 48 hours in between each one. So a Monday, Wednesday, Friday split, something like that would be great. And for the most part, full body, at least these three for sure. These are the ones we really want to address. But 48 hours apart, 3 days a week, and about 30 minutes worth of work, and or a total volume that you would suggest be somewhere around 150 to 250 reps. Okay, that total volume kind of component should give them, and that's start to finish, 3 sets of 8, 10, 12, or whatever it's going to be. All of those things should kind of combine to give them about 150 to 250 reps. Now that could be the first week is 100, the next week's 150, and then so on, something like that, okay? Not gonna dive too deep into that, but it gives you some general guidelines. The first lift for sure, and the reason that we want this to be is that we want to incorporate the hinge movement pattern early and often in our workout. It is, other than general locomotion, meaning walking around, it is the most commonly performed true movement pattern that we do in life, breaking at the hip. So if we are going to perform that with resistance, with a semi-heavy load, with any kind of tempo controls, eccentric, velocity-based, anything like that, we want this to come early in the workout while they're fairly fresh, and that they can perform it with high velocity, low velocity, heavy load, light load, like whatever you're prescribing. And we want that to occur early so you get maximal performance and benefit out of it. But this is also one of the neurological movement patterns that can deteriorate the most under fatigue, meaning they're going to default away from using their glutes and their hamstrings. They're going to start using their erectors and their lower back more. And that movement might occur, that change and that transition from I'm doing this properly, I'm using my hamstrings, I'm using my glutes, to I'm using my erectors, I'm using my back. That might transition in as little as 2 to 3 sets. But to the naked eye, if you're not like truly watching and paying direct attention to that, it's really hard to see it, but the client will start to feel it, okay? So that's the first one that we want to address for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so to define the word older, when we look at older adults or anything like that, this can be anywhere. I will personally use the description of the word older as anybody over 50 that has 2 or more physical ailments. Now, that could be somebody in their 30s that has 2 or more physical ailments, or somebody that's in their 70s that doesn't have any, right? Like, it's a very open term, is my point. But generally speaking, if we have to put some kind of number on it, 50 and over, and they typically will have 2 or more physical ailments, a bad back, a bad knee, a frozen shoulder, diabetes, cancer, something like that, right? That's on a list of limitations that they may have. Now, with that being said, if you were 30 and you came in here to train with me, am I changing any of this? Absolutely not. Does anything that I'm about to go through change? No. This is just a little bit more pertinent to the aging body, because at the age of 50, this has got to be right on, and you've got to get going now. At 30, we've got a little more grace where you could screw around a little bit more and maybe not do as much of this in particular areas, but I would advise it. Like, I think all of this is pretty practical for anyone across the board. You could be 18 trying to become a discus thrower, and we're doing a lot of this same stuff. I'd say 85 to 90% of it for sports performance, let alone for an 80-year-old on a walker. Like, my point is the philosophy that we want to works for pretty much anyone. It's the last 10 to 20% that really steers this towards one specific demographic. And in this case, about 50, okay, is somewhere around there with 2 limitations is our description for older. And what was the second part? Was that it? Okay. Copy that. No problem. Okay, the second movement is the row. And the row is a very loose and general term here as well. This could be a pull as well. You could use rows or pulls interchangeably. And this could be either vertical or horizontal. So like a pull down from overhead, pull overs, seated rows, high pulls, anything that's going to emphasize the posterior chain, that's going to encourage your posterior chain to work through a fairly drastic range of motion. And what I mean by drastic is more than just flexing the elbows. We want the scapula to move. We want the rotator cuffs to be challenged and trained in multiple different directions if capable. Now, the posterior chain is going to be, it's going to be trained. I'll say this, it's going to be endured more than any other musculature system in your body, because it's responsible for holding you upright. So even those that don't resistance train will typically have like a semi-decently strong posterior chain because it is fighting gravity, number one. Number two, holds you up and moves you around through this world for the most part. So the posterior chain, because it's being addressed and abused so much, if we're not in good postures, we end up looking like Mr. Burns. We got the forward head, the frozen shoulder, the frozen neck, the round thoracic spine, the tucked butt, the little meddling fingers, like all of that kind of rounds and warps in because we're losing that battle to gravity. The posterior chain's basically just doing everything that it can to kind of keep up with the demand of gravity and the anterior world that is in front of it. As aging bodies become less capable of performing any kind of movement, basically as they age and they weaken, the world of multi-plane movement gets smaller and smaller to them. And the world of sagittal dominance grows bigger and bigger. Everybody follow me on that? Meaning my ability to cross-section, rotate, hinge, flex, turn, extend, reach, rotate, all of that really starts to minimize if I am not strong, capable, stable, able, which that was a hint of one of these lists to come, okay, as you see it there on the left. As those abilities become less and less, just the world of life straight in front of me, sagittally, just becomes so much more dominant. And unfortunately, if we stay in that position all the time, and gravity, and we're not building any more muscle, and our bones are getting weaker, we basically just get folded forward. And the more anteriorly dominant, posteriorly weak, forward folding we become, the more likely we are to fall, poor posture, poor quality of life, everything else that we kind of know carries along with the aging process of not being semi-athletic and or bone dense or muscularly dense as we age. So if we hinge really well and keep that capability, and we row and pull and build the musculature on the backside of our body, we're going to combat the most common movement and the most abused movement patterns in the human body. Now, if you take any other action throughout the day, like we talked about general locomotion, walking about, and then hinging was number two. If we take anything, purse, a grocery bag, a water bottle, anything, whatever it is, we grab it and we locomote somewhere else. I don't know if I'm using that word right, but you know what I mean. We move somewhere else, right? And then we replace it. We put it somewhere else. We do that like a couple of hundred times a day, depending if you have kids or not, maybe 1,000 times a day, right? We pick up Legos, and Keegan and I make jokes about it. We just, especially in the summer, we just chase our kids around the house, kind of picking up messes that they continue to make. And so we're hinging, grabbing, pulling, carrying, grabbing, hinging, rowing, carrying, and we just do that over and over and over again. And everybody does it, okay? Now, if you're a physical labor worker, even more. If you work in a gym like we do and we're moving weights and bringing weights to people, even more. We're continually carrying and transferring load all the time. And this is also an opportunity where, is this only going to occur directly in front of us, or can this be multi-directional? Can this be unilaterally loaded or bilaterally loaded or ipsilaterally loaded as we go through? Get another hint at some of the other training components, okay? We spend a little bit extra time on this one because these three movement patterns, hinging, pulling something towards you, holding onto that while you take it somewhere else, super common. We do it all the time. So if I only get to see you twice a week, and I only get you for 30 minutes or maybe 45 minutes every time that you're in here, what movement should we really be doing? I mean, should we be doing corrective exercises that help your shoulder range? I mean, a little bit, but like, I need you to get good at the stuff that you're going to be doing all the time. If I can get you really good at these things, you're going to be good at these things forever. And that's the purpose. That's our goal of let's keep people capable, able, stable, etc. And let's improve quality of life through these movement patterns. If we train these things, this will open up so much other abilities because these are the studs of the wall, the foundation of the frame. Like this, these are the basic things that if we do these really, really well, everything else will blossom from here. If these are not sound, it's going to be really difficult for me to increase my overhead shoulder range of motion, like the example I just gave you, if the posterior aspect of my shoulder is not strong. If my shoulder girdle is not capable of carrying load, it's not going to hold up when I pick up things and move it about. So what does it matter if I can get my arm over my head if I'm not strong enough to hold it there in the first place? See where I'm getting at? All of this comes back to these three are the foundational movement patterns that if we do these three well and train them weekly, okay, at least once a week, if not more. The hinge and the row for sure. Carries, I can understand, like we're going to do carries today. Maybe we push the tank or the sled next time, right? Anything like that where you are transferring load back and forth. I love the tanks. I love the sleds. Do those things as often as you can. Push them, pull them, drag them. Dragging is fantastic for your back, for your knees, for your ankles, plantar flexors, all this. I mean, the posterior chain, the focus there. Anyhow, you guys get the idea. These three, we got to hammer home. Does that mean we don't do all the other movements? No. But if you're making a checklist of things that you've got to do every day, these three for sure. And I will give you one kind of caveat to this. If you hold on to weights and do upwards of, 20 or more split squats, step ups, gate steps, anything where you're alternating your feet, drop step lunges, etc., you can kind of check that box for loaded carry as well. Because for at least 30 to 40 seconds, you were holding load while alternating feet, gaining in height and elevation. So I could do deadlifts, seated rows, and step-ups, and I could check these three boxes, okay? You don't have to do a specific loaded carry, farmer carry, suitcase carry. You can, you don't have to. You can kind of check those off with some of the split stance variations as well. What is the best carry to do out there, in my opinion? Suitcase carries. I don't think you get any better return. Heavy weight on one side, nothing on the other. You may be able to carry more in a farmer, but the amount of return of gait control, core activation, and gait reactive ground force, meaning how well, sorry for the coughing, how well you're able to transfer yourself on the ground while carrying load, heavily loaded on one side, has a drastic ability to, number one, keep you upright, but also increase your gait, have a carryover or return to your gait when you're not loaded. Meaning, this is what I found with my dad, is when I gave him two weights that of equal weight and he carried them, he would walk okay, but if I took one away, he'd walk even better. He had to recruit more muscle not to fall over when he wasn't evenly loaded than when he just had weight on one side. So he learned how to activate more musculature so he could walk more efficiently, improving his gait. So then we took the weights away and I said, pretend like you're carrying something on your right side and just walk. He had a great gait. And then we just practiced doing that when not under load. We slowly learned and kind of trained that back into him. Three of the most important planes to perform. Well, there's only three, so we'll kind of go through those as we go through. Well, that's not true. There's multi-components of this, but you get my drift. First one will be bilateral, okay, as we kind of go through this. Now, I know you're thinking like sagittal plane and frontal plane. Those are multi-directional planes, yes. I'm looking at this more in terms of planes of action in which we'll be able to set up to perform sagittal, frontal, or transverse, okay? So bilateral, simply put, just means that you're going to perform both legs or both arms at the same time. A cable-seated row, a dumbbell bench press, or barbell bench press, a hex bar deadlift, etc. Okay, so bilateral loading is probably the way that you're going to get the greatest strength gains, I would say, bilaterally. Are you going to make the greatest gains of asymmetries, meaning from my right side to my left side not being equal? Probably not, because we have something called bilateral dominance, okay? Bilateral dominance means when I'm pulling a weight off the floor and you're watching me, and you could stand wherever you want to stand, and every rep I do, you go, that looked pretty even, 50-50. That one looked pretty even, 50-50. If I were standing on a force plate, one under my right leg and one under my left, you would see that I'm actually 60-40. We are just really good, we meaning humans, are just really good at hiding that. We're really good at taking a body or a movement and putting it through a range of motion and making it look like it's loaded pretty even though it might not be. So if I load up with a hex bar and I just pull and return, to the naked eye, you look at it and you're like, yeah, it's pretty even. You should just grow even strength from here. But if I'm always 60 on my right, 40 on my left, even though I'm hiding it from you, I'm going to build a 20% gap in difference of asymmetries between those two sides as we continue to train. And then at some point, I'm going to be so strong on my right side and have such a gap on my left that you're going to go, well, let's go to unilateral training for a little bit. Let's do one arm or one leg at a time, and let's try to mend that gap, right? Let's try to build that up a little bit. Well, then what do? We have one side that basically has to kind of pause because we don't want it to get any stronger or else it increases the gap. So the strong side, we just kind of say, stay strong. And then the weak side, we say, catch up, right? We try to hurry up. Everybody knows the the catch-up joke with the two parents. Hurry up, and he smashes them. Catch up, right? So that we got to kind of do that. Like, hurry up, man. We got to get this other side to get up here. But in doing that, a lot of times injuries will occur because we're trying to hurry that process. So what you can do is look at one workout a week that you do. Maybe it's Monday, Tuesday's workout as a bilateral focused lift in which you're going to do hinges, rows, and carries bilaterally. And then maybe in your second workout, Wednesday or Thursday, whenever you see your client next, you're going to do unilateral lifts. So we're going to do single arm rows and a single arm overhead press and a single leg step up. Okay, something along those lines. And then you can kind of go through your progressions and say, all right, one day a week, we're going to focus on bilateral strength. The next day, we're going to focus on asymmetry, equalization, seeking muscular equality is kind of one of the sayings we have, where we're trying to get each side to be able to do the same range of motion under the same stability with the same load, same velocity, same tempos. And you'll feel the difference. I'll do dumbbell cleans with my right arm and it's super smooth and it looks good and it feels good. And then I do my left arm and I can do the same weight, but it feels goofy as shit and it's uncoordinated. And when I watch a video, I'm like, I'm never going to demo with my left arm because it looks terrible. It's so much smoother on this side. Do we keep that differential or do we say, let's keep hammering home this left arm until we get it coordinated enough to where it looks good on that side? And that's the goal, right? We want to seek muscular equality. And by doing that, it could be a performance-based. It looks good, feels smooth, clean, comfortable. Load, it could be that we're able to lift 40 pounds and lift 40 pounds now, so we're equal there. Range of motion might be short on one side, bigger on the other, so let's equal that up. And then tempo and control. Maybe I can pull on my right side a half a second faster than I can on my left. I can do the same weight, it's just really slow. Okay, can that become an asymmetry? Absolutely. If I need to move my legs quickly to catch after I catch my toe on a curb or a step, I've got to be able to move my right leg just as quick as my left. Well, if my left is a half a second slower, which side am I going to fall on? My left side. I can't move that foot as fast. So now I'm open for injury, I'm susceptible now, right, to that side. So that's where seeking muscular qualities is ideal. Like, I don't want asymmetries. I want to be as equal as I can. But do we all have asymmetries? Absolutely. Something as simple as which side you sling your purse on, which arm you put your backpack on through first. Think about that one right now, everybody. Well, hold up your arm. Which arm goes through your backpack loop first? I bet 99% of you just put your right arm up. Okay, you put your right arm in, that goes up and it holds the bag onto your shoulder, and then your left arm goes under and through. So which arm do you think is more mobile? Probably your left arm. Which one's more stable? Probably your right arm. Try switching that next time. I look like a goof. I can't get my backpack on my left arm and then reach my right arm behind me. I don't even have the coordination to do it. I never do that. I always do it the other way. That creates asymmetries. If you always carry your suitcase, when I'm going through the airport, I pull with my right arm every single time. Every time. All those little things create asymmetries. So are we always going to have those? Sure. And if your job has some kind of dependency on it like that, and I had a girl named Stacy that worked at Rayleigh's for like 30 years. Right hand did the keyboard, left hand grabbed and scanned. So which arm was more stable, which one had constant injury prone elbows and lateral epicondylitis issues, like always her left arm, right hand dexterity issues, neuropathies, carpal tunnel, etc. All of these demands of the job, okay? So long story short on this one is we want to have some type of training throughout the week. It could be one whole workout or at least a section of a workout that is bilaterally focused. And then you want another section that's going to have some unilateral focus. But then you have something called ipsilateral training. And ipsilateral training is where a good deal of injuries will occur when not training. The best example I can give you is this. Think of your couch or your washing machine. And if you drop something behind one of them, how do you get to it? In most cases, you put your right foot against the corner of the couch or the wall and you reach behind with your right hand. That would be ipsilateral, the same side. Your right foot's forward, your right hand is reaching. But in regular daily life and anything else for the most part that we do it contralaterally, meaning you would have your left foot forward when you reach with your right hand out, because that's how we walk. Contralateral, left foot, right arm, and then we switch them. And then we switch them, we switch them, we switch. If you ever watch someone walk ipsilaterally, that person's an alien. That's not a real person, right? Yeah, they're trying to walk like that. It looks fake. It looks AI because it's just super goofy. It's not natural, right? Yeah, Keegan's kind of doing it. It's very robotic. Yeah,
Practicing.
like, that's Will Smith. Like, call the Man
I
in
want
Black.
to see you running. I want to
That's
start running.
yeah. Oh, it's super goofy.
Okay. You're gonna look up and I'm gonna be running across the background here.
And and that contralateral movement that we do when we do single leg RDLs, when we do single arm rows on a cable pulley, anything, we're so comfortable training that way. We're so strong with opposites like that, that when you set up ipsilaterally, it feels weak. And it is. That's why. It's because we don't train it all that often. So you're super susceptible to ipsilateral exposures. Right foot forward, right hand reaching, hinging, reaching, leaning forward. Those are most of those positions are the ones that are occurring most often when backs get thrown out, when hips get sprained, when shoulders get hurt. You're in these susceptible positions. So something that we can start to do now is Monday, Tuesday, bilateral, Wednesday, Thursday, unilateral. While unilaterally training, do 2 sets contralateral, do 2 sets ipsilateral. So we're able to train these positions, even though you're still doing a single arm row. Doesn't matter what foot is forward. Sure it does. If you're always contralateral, are we ever going to build ipsilateral strength? I don't think so. Question.
I was going to say, I have a hilarious just
Let's hear it.
that if any of them want to send us a video of them running preferably,
Extra
and
credit.
walking
Ipsilateral running.
I will put you
Extra
in
credit.
the raffle to win a free TOA shirt.
Free TOA shirts for anyone who sends us videos of you doing
I'm gonna
ipsilateral
try. I'll
running,
draw 5.
walking.
I'll
Okay,
draw 5.
I'm in.
I'm
I would
in.
love to see it.
I want to see it.
Will one person please do it? We always
my
we do
God.
stuff like this. You guys never take us up on it.
I
We
know.
have T-shirts
Okay.
and stickers and all kinds of shit to give
I'll
away.
make sure you guys don't feel like
Here, hold on. Let me. Okay, here we go. Hit it. Here we go. Hit it. Ipsilateral. That was terrible. No. Try just walking. Just walk. There you go. There you go. There it is. Yep. Yep, that was good. The wheels are falling off. All right, I think we hit that one.
I expect videos.
And we expect videos. Someone can do better than that. Don't let that be the T-shirt winner. All right, the 3 most important aspects to perform in every workout. Aspects here, these are very loose terms. Okay, aspects are areas of focus that you can look at in a workout. There are organizations that have training models. I'll just put it that way. Okay? There's a lot of them out there. Everybody's got their own model. And some of those models suggest that you have to have stability before you can start training mobility. And that through a combo of stability and mobility, you can now train for strength. And then once your strength is established through a certain range of motion, you now have mobility that equals ability that you can then move quickly, and that gives you the opportunity for power. And I say that's all bullshit, that we can train all that stuff at once, okay? Because our systems of our body don't work in 1-step stability, 2-step mobility fashions, we're always working on all of this at one moment. If you just go slower, it's going to be a little more stability. If you go at a moderate tempo, it'll be a little more strength. And if you go really fast, it'll be a little bit more power. But I'll tell you this, you won't be able to go fast if you're not stable and mobile and agile. And you won't be able to go really slow if you don't have strength and stability, okay? Bottom line is, if we start slow and basic light load and just gradually progress, we're going to end up with all the pieces that we want, being stronger and working through better ranges of motion are going to help us be more able. So if you just generally think about increasing stability, to be stable, you must be strong. So let's lift a little bit. And if you work through really good ranges of motion, full range of motion, don't short range everything, you'll ultimately improve your ability as a person overall. And ability can be done slow or fast. Dynamic, explosive, power-based, or slow, eccentric, strength-based. So the first part of this is let's just get stable. Let's have our ability to assist and or resist a desired load and through a certain range of movement. This could be a rotation. or a push or a press or anything else, but it could also be anti-rotation. It could be not moving. Question.
I don't know if this is relevant or not. I mean, actually, but I had a comment here about at the gym where they work, a lot of their trainers take their clients straight to the machine, without they were doing the older clients service.
Yeah, I agree.
On that, is there a place and time to start there? And
Let's start with that. Is there a time and place to start with machines? If you have a client, I'll say this. If you have a client that walked into the gym, they could train with free weights. Okay? And generally speaking, if they walked into the gym, they can train with free weights. If they needed assistance coming into the gym, a walker, a cane, a wheelchair, then stabilization of a machine or at least a cable pulley may be needed. Okay? And I even then say may. I'm not anti-machine. People think I'm anti-machine. I'm not anti-machine. I'm not anti-slide. I've been thinking about getting a plate-loaded machine. I want one in here. I found one that you can do floor pressing, bench pressing, shrugging, lunging. It's basically just a pivot tilt with independent arms. I think that's a great idea because when you have limitations and injuries like I do, those types of stability additions could be great. But those arms are independent to move wherever I want them. I simply need the leverage, right, of the pivot arm. That's all I need to help me stabilize for my shoulder. So I'm trying to find the least amount of stability through the best functional range, but still an aiding stability that will allow me to work with my limitation, not around it, okay? So I'm not anti-machine. I'm saying you can use machines as needed. But as soon as you build stability plus mobility and you have a better ability, let's progress to the next difficult action. And for most machines, that's going to be cables. And then for most cables, that's going to be free weights, okay?
what about the answer to the question, people who say strength comes before stability? You have to have strength in order to be stable.
I think those are, I don't think that's a correct statement. That I would argue that you can't get strong without being stable and you can't be stable without being strong. That's what I'm saying is this has to start somewhere. This is the chicken or the egg. That's where people will start to, and we've answered that at some point. Which one of those two things came first? My point is we're gonna have to start them at some point and at some place. And if you go through a selectorized machine exercise, like a whole circuit, and they're looking at you like, dude, this was fine, but I can do more, then go do more. Like, do them the service of going to do more. I would prefer to take someone towards more of a cable pulley / free weight routine and have to regress them to a machine where I'm like, hey, when it comes to squatting, you're not great. Let's go do the sit to stand machine, or let's go do a leg press or whatever it might be. But all the other ones, they're good. Like, I'd rather move away from those as much as possible because I think you get a greater return there. But if the shoe fits, like if that is a need to go to those machines until they're capable of doing more, then go for it. But you're going, as you start to increase load on those machines, they're getting stronger, they will become more stable. Or by the definition of your argument, we didn't do any stability training, they simply got stronger. Well, now they can do free weights. See what I'm saying? Like, strength is stability. Stability is strength. Through either of those, they simply have to get stronger at moving through ranges. With support or without, we'll slowly start to progress them towards without. Okay? Keep in mind, and that's where this last little bit is there is stability in no movement. Okay? There is an anti-rotation or an anti-movement component that is very stable. So these are side planks, push-up holds, plank variations, inverted planks, wall sits, handstand, to go to high levels like handstands, etc. Muscular hangs. Are we doing a lot of those with aging bodies? Not so much. A lot of people go and regress to body weight. Do you know how difficult body weight exercises are? Like, some of the hardest workouts we do are body weight workouts. Push-ups, pull-ups, dips, lunges, jump squats, box, burpees, handstands, bear crawls, depth jumps. Those are all body weight. They're really difficult, really, really hard. And the selectorized machines are way easier than that. If you're looking for regression, go to the machines. Don't go to body weight. Body weight's difficult. Use load that is not equal to body weight to build those strength windows, those frames that are missing. Because you get somebody that's 300 pounds, they're probably really strong at moving around 300 pounds, just not through any kind of range of motion. So they could do some holds, yeah. But as soon as you say, like, let's do push-ups and lunges and dips, they're probably not going to do great. Deconditioned 300 pounds, you know? I'm not talking like, I don't know, Bill Heath. Yeah, 300 pounds. Okay, mobility is the next aspect in this, where we're basically going to continue stability training, but we're going to do so in a big full range of motion with sagittal, transverse, or frontal plane movements, or combos of any of those, complexing combinations of any of those, with rotational actions or anti-rotational actions. Of course, there's not going to be a whole lot of range of motion in anti-rotation. I get that. But in everything else, the biggest, fullest range of motion that you can is vitally important, okay? Now, at the deepest stretch or the deepest range of motion that you can work, let's take a goblet squat. For example, number 1, we'll do bench press number 2. I'm holding a load, goblet squat, load is at heart height, sternum height, and I take a deep squat to parallel. For every inch I'm able to get below parallel, I am going to say 7 to 10 pounds of gain can occur eccentrically. Again, I'm just throwing out numbers, okay, to just make an example. As I can work deeper and deeper and deeper and sit into these stretches deeper and deeper, what might normally be a 20-pound weight in a week could be a 30-pound weight. In 2 weeks could be a 40-pound weight in 2 weeks, meaning that the deeper stretched ranges of motion are where the true strength gains occur. Does that mean that you can't get strong in shorter ranges? No, partials have been a part of training for decades, and it works. That works fine. But when we look at the functional return, if our goal is to increase ability, the range of motion is more important. And if I can take a moderate amount of load under deep ranges of motion, deep squats, as long as we're in all the right positions, not tucking my butt, I'm not rounding my back, okay, I'm not buckling my knees. As long as I'm in good positions and exceeding deep ranges, staying strong, building strength, those deep eccentric stretches, great gains can occur. Maybe 2, 3 times as fast. Eccentric training is extremely valuable. Why would it be so valuable to the aging body? Clock's ticking, gang. These people are 50 plus, okay? Clock is ticking. They don't have 2 decades to dick around from 30 to 50 before they realize, man, I need to get in shape. The time is now. So every workout matters. Eccentric loading not only gets them stronger quicker with this greater range of motion, increases mobility, ultimately giving them better ability, but there's a lesser injury rate because they're moving slower with the load. The opportunity to be spastic or dynamic and they're not ready to do that is not really there as long as they're doing this right. So then they get really strong at this. Then after 4, 6, 8 weeks of eccentric style training, then we start to move that same range of motion with lighter loads faster. And now they start to get explosive and dynamic. Now we've increased ability. Now they are more powerful. They are more dynamic. They are more explosive. They are now fall resistant, more fall resistant, because they are strong in deep ranges of motion. They are stable through ranges of motion or not moving at all. And they can move really slow with heavy shit or really fast with lighter shit. All of this preps them for whatever we throw at them throughout the day. This gives them great opportunities to be ready for any movement, any action, any trip, any fall, any stumble, any catch. And they can recover really quick and keep going. And it happens so quickly and nonchalantly now that in some cases they don't even recognize it. I'll see my father-in-law, my mother-in-law do this often, where had they not been training, this would have been a catastrophic injury. And the fact that they are training, they just stumble and keep walking, and we don't even talk about it. But a second ago, if they had not been training, that would have been a stumble, fall, broken hip, cracked forehead, blood, the whole afternoon ruined, right? One of those situations is avoided by step, oh, let's keep going, let's go feed the chickens, and off we go down the driveway. They don't even think about it. We don't even think about it because they're so capable of just recovering and going at 70 years old. But had they not been training for that, that would have been a major injury. Sure.
Can Robert clarify dominant exercises with hip dominant, for instance, is doing a sumo squat followed by a hex bar deadlift?
Let me think about that. Save it for me for the end, because that might be that might be a little bit deeper. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can come back. Save that one for me. All right. And I think we talked about this. Okay. The last little bit of ability, one extra thing that we want to focus on too are checkpoints on a daily basis of directional movement action, meaning we're good at going forward and back. Or most of the time, we're really good at going forward. We can get better at going backwards, okay? Lowering center of mass, moving backwards. Side to side's tricky. Side to side's a tough one, and something that we do want to train. We don't have to train it all the time, but on I don't know, every other week, something like that would be good. A lateral lunge, a lateral step up, some lateral carries even sometimes. Because we do that. Think about when you're getting out of a parking spot and it's really narrow in between the cars. You grab your stuff and you have to like shimmy sideways, right? You got to kind of slide shuffle, right, to get in and out.
That probably happens.
That happens more. Yeah, my fat ass does not fit so well in between the cars. Can't walk straight. I got to slide shuffle a lot. That is a common action. We just don't really think about training it all that often, but that's something we want to be good at. But the big one is up and down from the floor and up and down stairs. The average stair in this world nowadays is 6 to 10 inches. Okay, so 8 inches on average. You'll see some as low as 6, some as high as 10. It used to be 10 to 12 inches. And those standards, as with our military standards, our high school fitness standards, all these standards have all come down because our societal standards and abilities have decreased, unfortunately. Okay, so they've had to make steps in homes and buildings and everywhere you go out and outings about your day. They've had to make the steps smaller so more people are capable of ascending and descending them. So if you can get your clients really good at doing a 12-inch step, you're going to serve them very, very well. They're going to be able to basically navigate anything that they'll see throughout their days. Where they'll see some bigger steps are at outdoor amphitheaters, parks, that kind of thing. And even in those cases, they'll have railings and things to hang on to. But we want them ready for anything that will come their way. So think about that. Can they get up and down from the floor? Can they do so on both sides? Up and down on my right knee, up and down my left knee? Can I get up and down onto my back, up and down onto my stomach? And then can they ascend and descend stairs, multiple stairs, 1 or 2 stairs, with or without railings, etc. Other features to incorporate into your training. Hand dexterity is a big one. Grip strength is a massive component to this. I'd like to do something at least once a week, if not daily, that emphasizes grip strength. And if you are emphasizing and focusing on grip strength, either by grip strength crushing or grip hands extending, remember strength is on either side of your hand, and be like, I want arm strength, so all I'm going to train are biceps. We'd be like, well, hey, you missed a whole other side of the arm here that's really important, right? Like the triceps is just as important on the other side of this. Well, we think grip strength, all you think is crush, crush, crush. No one really thinks about extending their hands, opening their hands. And in many cases, we give ourselves more arthritic, more carpal tunnel-based issues by over-flexing, overusing, and not extending enough. And that's where rubber bands around your fingers and there are little gloves that have holes in them where you can extend your hands and build strength on the back of your hand. Pretty important. They have all kinds of different sets. You can go to Iron Mind or any of these other little companies. You put them on Google or on Amazon, you'll find them. We have multiple sets, and when our clients are doing their bridges and their mobilities on the floor, they put the rubber bands on and they do little talking puppets with their hands while they're on the ground doing their stuff. This is important for all kinds of daily needs, from basic dexterities and more fine point motor skills, index finger to thumb, etc., to opening jars and windows, any type of hand grip strength manipulations. And you'll see some scores there that you want people to be able to just at least squeeze to, okay, basics. Torque and rotation go hand in hand. Torque is your ability to produce any type of rotational strength over a distance, and then how fast you can do that. When you throw a baseball, that's torque production. If you throw a frisbee, that's torque production. If you throw a hammer like I did in college, that's torque production. That's a lot of torque production. Well, torque production is multi-plane. And that's where we want to get away from, I'm going to do sagittal rowing today, sagittal pushing today, and sagittal pulling today. We want to get into multi-directional, multi-pattern movements. So that's where you're going to bilateral, ipsilateral, contralateral, unilateral. And we want to pull from overhead and push horizontal, and then pull from below and push to overhead. And you want to mix up all your movement patterns. You also want to have multiple opportunities to cross those. Throwing from right hip up over your left shoulder like a sack of potatoes you're tossing onto a truck, okay? That could be a lateral tossing action that could be super beneficial in its explosiveness, and there's power based in there. Reaching over your head in a rainbow slam, slamming a sandbag down onto the ground, chopping bands from low to high or high to low, or from directly overhead straight down like you're splitting wood, but then from between your knees pulling up overhead like you're throwing a kettlebell up onto the roof, okay? snatches, cleans, all types of different movement patterns. Bilaterally, barbells, dumbbells, fat bells, kettlebells, yeah, okay, in my opinion. Lots of opportunities there to work multiple different levers, multiple different planes of movement, multiple different actions, etc. And then hallucis mobility. And there are different ways of saying this, but basically, how mobile is your big toe? Has a lot to do. Enough to make the list all on its own, gang. Like, that's how important this is, okay? Now, do this one with me. Let's do this together real quick. Key, could you look up the lady's name of what this test is? It's like, it's her last name or her first name, Eliza or Ilya or something like that. But basically, it's a standing, leaning test. Everybody stand up nice and tall. Put all the pressure on your big toe and lean forward like the Michael Jackson, video where he leans in, Smooth Criminal. And you hold that for 5 seconds, and then you come back. And the next one, you lean in again, and you try to hold it for 6 seconds, and then you come back. And then you lean in again, and you try to hold it for 7 seconds. And make sure your butt goes with you. We get clients that start just tilting further and further from the hip. You want your entire body to lean, and you want those big toes to be like, oh my God, and you gotta hold, and then they push back and they rest for a second. And that's all the test is. So we'll have our clients doing like their lacrosse ball drills while they're doing hand-eye coordination stuff. And while they're doing it, they'll lean forward and they'll do like 10 dribbles, and then they'll lean back, and then they'll lean forward, and we'll do 10 dribbles, and then they'll lean back. And you can see like their hamstrings are cramping. Their glutes, their legs are shaking because there's so much work being done, but really all the pressure is on their big toe, all the toes, but the big toe specifically, really digging in to try to keep them as capable and as much ground reaction forced as possible. This is your ability to be able to change direction quickly. If this toe is not strong, this is when you take that first step, it doesn't work well, so you take another one, which by default is a short lever, over acceleration, faster torque production, makes you hit the ground quicker. Rather than if you just went, I'm not gonna make it, and just rode it to the ground, right? Like, you would hit the ground with less force than by going step, 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 and then you eat it, okay? It'd be better to just go, I'm not gonna make it, and just timber than to try to do these short steps. It's because that big, number one, you didn't throw your foot out far enough, but your big toe didn't have enough ground reaction to push off to get there. So that's how important the big toe is like, it's the first line of defense in the first line of defense of helping us not fall down. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Vel? There we go. I was close. What did I say? L? Ella? Or I said L or something like that.
Yeah, but surprisingly, the single best predictor of a senior citizen's falling is toe strength. In a prospective study of 300 older adults, Linkul et al. Discovered that non-falling seniors had 20% more toe strength than fell. Interestingly, there was no difference in quadricep or ankle strength between the fallers and the non-fallers, confirming that toe weakness, not generalized weakness, is responsible for the falls. Unfortunately, toe weakness is extremely common in senior citizens compared to the younger peers. Older adults have toe strength declines more than 35%.
I bet if you go to YouTube, there's a really good-looking, bald, bearded guy that did a video on that already. Maybe we can put that in the maybe we can put that in the show notes. Good job, love. Yeah, that's exactly the study I was looking for. See, she's my Jamie. She's my Joe Rogan Jamie. She finds all the stuff that I'm hoping she can look for. I gave you like literally nothing, and you found exactly what I wanted. So thank you.
It took me a second.
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it. That's exactly what it was. You nailed it. Great job. Great job. So yeah, big toe strength and toe strength training in general is really, really good. Remember in Die Hard, the guy tells Bruce Willis, he goes, you know the secret to traveling? When you get to the hotel, take your shoes off and make fists with your toes. Do you remember that scene? And he gets to the hotel and he starts doing it and he's like, son of a bitch, he's right. Like that whole scene. That's actually a really good thing to do. Just do it with a towel under your feet so you have something to dig into. Like the carpet won't move. But if you do it with like a shower towel and like squish the towel up under your feet, it fills up just like if you were gripping a towel and like wringing it with your hands. It does the same thing for your feet. I have famously told Keegan, at some point in our lives, my toes are going to save us because my toes can pinch and untie knots and like can do all kinds of cool shit. But I train them to do that. I am a freak. I have 2 big toes and then 4 finger toes that basically look like my hands. That's how long my toes are. But they are very capable. But you have to train them. You have to train them. You have way better toe flexibility. That's another video I did on toe flexibility. This girl could just pull her toes to 90 degrees for some reason. Mine go up about 5 degrees. Okay, last one. All right, basic little bits to bring this together here for us. This has been fun. It's so much better when you're here. When I'm just here talking to myself, I look around like, funny? No, nothing. Crickets. I can't hear any of them. Okay, power training, as we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, okay? You have two types of power training, also known as velocity training. But when you say velocity, everybody thinks what? Fast, right? Velocity, that's got to be for speed. Velocity means change in tempo. That's all that means, okay? Sometimes it's a slow velocity, sometimes it's a really fast velocity. So training both of those are really important. You could do a little bit of velocity training of both levels in every workout. We could do some eccentric deadlifts and do some dynamic concentric snatches. Back to back, you could do them back to back and still get great benefits, right? Is the eccentric loading gonna probably tax out your system a little bit to where when you go to do the power stuff, it's not gonna be as fast? Yeah, but you could also say, if I do a bunch of fast stuff first, my eccentrics won't work as well. The eccentrics are gonna be a little bit more neuromuscularly resistant to fatigue. So that's why people will typically do power training of higher velocities earlier in a workout. They'll do snatches, they'll do cleans, they'll do box jumps, they'll do plyometrics. They'll do the explosive stuff early. It's not just because you're fresh necessarily in attentiveness. It's because your body is most dynamic and most explosive now. And that system is only going to slowly drain and drain and drain and drain as we use it. But if I have to move something really slow and muscular and strong, doesn't have to move fast, even under pretty extreme fatigue, I can still do that with a pretty heavy load. Our type 2 fibers will fatigue super, super quick and early, but our type 1s can resist for quite a while. So can you do them back to back? Sure, but would it be probably a little bit better to do more dynamic, lighter, explosive stuff earlier, and then your more eccentric, slower stuff second? Yes, but they both have big components to them. Now, even though I've been using examples like snatches and cleans and jerks and such, does that mean that you can't do high velocity power training with a selectorized machine? Absolutely not. Most of the studies are done on those, okay? Actually, very few studies are done with free weights. Almost all of them are done with the selectorized machines because it's the most simple thing that everybody can do. So if, just by assumption, you can say, if everybody can get on these machines and move them with a little lighter load really fast and get more powerful and explosive, if they went and did actual power-based movements now, snatches, box jumps, clean and jerks, all that kind of stuff, swings, etc., releases, throwing drills, etc., they would be even more powerful. You could assume that that would be a greater return. So they look at the most basic movement and say, let's just implement the strategy. Light load, move it quick on these machines, do it early in the workout. How does it return? It returns well. People get more explosive, okay? Now, are we going to take our 60-year-old clients and ask them to start doing box jumps? Probably not. I wouldn't advise that. But can they do a sit to stand and come up off the ground? Can they leave the ground by a centimeter because they came up so quickly, and then they can come back down, have a seat, and then come up so quickly that they just barely leave the ground? Absolutely. Can they swing a kettlebell so violently that at the top of the swing, they let go of it and throw it up and over their head into a pit of sand behind them because you're outside training, throwing weights back and forth and get powerful? Absolutely. Did they ever leave the ground? Did they have to jump onto a box? Did they ever have to scrape their shins down a box because they didn't make it onto there? Did they ever have to bound across the track? No. The idea of plyometric means dynamic explosive movement, period. It doesn't mean what most strength coaches think. We have to go do plyometrics, bounds, skips, jumps, cartwheels, backflips, all that. That's not this. If I can teach my clients to do dumbbell cleans, dumbbell snatches, dynamic sit to stands, dynamic deadlifts, and release drills, we'll make them super powerful. Their bones will get really, really dense. They're strong. Their muscles will get really, really strong. Their muscles will get slow, eccentric, strength for stability, dynamic, explosive, fast velocity for fall prevention. We can get both of those right there, right? All from these actions. And then the coordination that comes in with throwing things is super fun. Clients love it. They love throwing stuff. Now, if we start to incorporate in dynamic bench press or eccentric bench press, pull downs, push press, drop step lunges, split squats, step ups, etc. My point is you can make anything more explosive, lighter, faster. You can make anything slower, more eccentric, and heavier. And you can just kind of work those tempos. the best tempos dynamically, 2 to 0, 2 seconds eccentric, and then less than a second, as fast as you can on the other end, concentric. And on the eccentric, it's 4 seconds through the stretch and just a 1 second regular return. When we look at good strength training components, unilateral and bilateral, we hit this home pretty good. Your single arm rows, your single arm presses, your single leg step ups, your single leg RDLs, and or kickstands. Even though both feet are on the ground, you're still in the staggered stance that's going to overload one, but not necessarily have to depend on your ability to balance. One of the better actions for us to do are kickstand RDLs or single leg RDLs, because if we can get really good stabilization training and strength and range of motion and ability, all of that on one leg and then on the other, I can guarantee you can do it with both. But just because you can do it with both doesn't mean that we can do it with each one independently. See what I'm saying? That's a little Mike Boyle split squat versus a regular back squat. If I can train each leg independently, bilaterally, no problem. But just because I can do a deep bilateral anything doesn't mean that I can do it unilaterally on its own. Okay? You need independent joint strength as best you can there. And that's where these unilateral lifts come in. Followed by your bench presses, rows, hex bar deadlifts, etc., and your swing. I don't know if there's going to be a better return, full body activation. My daughter asked me the other day, like, if there was one lift that you could do for the rest of your life, what would it be? And I said, like a hex bar clean pull, right? Like a hex bar with a pull off the ground that I could shrug and or a high pull shrug. I think that would probably give me ultimate muscle activation across the board, the best return. It's a hinge, it's a row, I can load that carry. Like I can kind of do all of that stuff. All the things that I'm trying to get. I can make it really heavy, I can make it light and explosive, right? Like that's a pretty good piece. If I had to just one thing forever, that would probably be it. It would keep me pretty capable. So a hex bar and or a kettlebell, you can stand right over the top. I think you can have a lot of good return there. And then no good strength and conditioning program is not complete without the other half of this, which are bouts of higher intensity, because the higher your VO2 max is, the more capable your VO2 max is, the less likely you are to meet an early mortality rate, meaning you'll live longer. You have a longer life expectancy, and it's quite drastic, okay? Quite drastic. Quick stats. These are from Dr. Peter Attia's book. He talks about being able to pick up 18 pounds for clients over the age of 70, and that's a parameter for them to say you're weak or strong. Can you pick up 18 pounds, 8 kilos, okay? And if they could do that, they're not weak. If they can't do it, I think twice, they are weak. And by that standard, you have a 250% increase in all-cause mortality if you can't do that versus if you can. That's how important muscular strength is. So 250% increase all-cause mortality simply by being weak enough to not pick up 18 pounds at age 70. 8 kilos. That's the pink kettlebell, everybody, right? In your regular gym. For VO2 max, if you're in the top 10% for your age group, it's a 400% increase. So you want to have a good VO2 max is my point. And there's a ton of different categories for every, 4 or 5 age brackets that they kind of go through, 35 to 39, 40 to 44, et cetera, as it goes up, whatever it is. You want to be in the top 10%. You are 400% more likely to live longer than people that are in the lower half. So that's pretty important. Little bouts of higher intensities can be done with weights, but also fun kind of quote unquote conditioning exercises like pushing the tank or a sled, pulling a tank or a sled. The ski erg, doing sprints on there, battle ropes, your inertial waves, any variation of a carry, suitcase, farmer, frame carries, Zercher carries, car carry, any carry, swings, release drills, etc. All these can be very taxing cardiovascularly, just as much as I could get on a select rise machine, make that weight really light and go, crank up my volume for sets of 30 or 40 and have a conditioning component on there too. The point is, we're going to have strength, rest, we're going to have conditioning, rest. Those can, come together in the same workouts and probably should. So master your basics as we wrap this up, and we'll take Q&A here for a little bit. Hinges, rows, and carries. We know that our strength and stability through an increased range of motion with good load will increase our ability. We want to have something that's going to focus on higher velocity resistance training or power training, We want to have something that's going to be time under tension or strength-based focused eccentrically. And we want to have something that's a higher intensity resistance training for our conditioning. Between those three, you're going to have some pretty good opportunities to get people to be very capable and able and live long and be happy and do all the great things we want them to do. We want to address their grip strength. We want them to be able to rotate well and create torque, and we want their big toes to be very strong, very capable, may literally save your life someday, your big toe strength. Your bilateral movement patterns, your unilateral movement patterns, your ipsilateral and your contras, but the ipsilaterals are probably the ones that we really want to address to make sure when those odd or awkward angles come about, they are ready to perform them and not hurt themselves. Favorite lifts that offer some of the best returns, kettlebell or hex bar deadlifts, we address that. Hinge pull downs and or pullovers, something where you are stretching, elongating your lats, your serratus, okay, working through that big reach overhead and then pulling back down. I think you could have some pretty great returns. We do have some clients that aren't capable of laying on their back, so you can set up a pulley, give them a supinated palms up grip, let them hinge in really deep, let it stretch them overhead, and then pull down, basically a simulated chin up. Okay, you could do something along those lines. Dumbbell or fat bell, single arm cleans, single arm snatches, single arm presses, rows. Okay, from there, your tank or your sled pushes or pulls. Okay, these are so important, such a big component. Are you setting up the tank because someone's asking about it? Okay, yeah, the tank is basically a heavy loaded walker. It's magnet resistant, there's no belt in it, and it gives you an opportunity to only go forward or back for those clients that can't hit triple extension because they're cane-based crutches, walkers, etc. They can train and push through athletically and be able to build back an ability that eventually gets them away from their assisted device. And then try to include in every workout something that trains a very fast tempo. That's where your clean snatches, pulls, throws all come in. Something that trains slow tempos, bench press, rows, deadlifts, etc. Something that is cross-sectional, chops, throws, pulls, as we talked about. And then something that trains different ranges of motion up and down off the floor, up and down stairs, up and down off boxes, or different box heights as you're able to work through different sit stands above, to, or below parallel, etc. Okay, screen grabs here up for everybody. These are workouts from this month. I just wanted to give you some examples. As we go through this, we look at volumes and tempos and counts and angles. We try to say, all right, the majority of life is going to occur in front and behind us. So yeah, probably 80% of the programming is done along these sagittal actions, but a lot of them are done contralaterally, ipsilaterally, bilaterally, unilaterally, right? We're changing positions, angles, implements, etc. Then we have our cross-sectional chops and our slams and our tosses. A lot of our clients are training at home, so we don't have sleds or sandbags that they can throw or they can toss. So I'm going to give you some variety, a little bit of everything. So you can kind of see if they don't have a bench press, they're going to lay on the floor. If they don't have bands, they're going to have to row dumbbells and not do face pulls. We're going to have different varieties and options. But if they were in-house with all the cool stuff that we have to train with, we can do some badass programming. Now, if all they have at home are dumbbells, you're going to have to get creative, but we can still check all of these boxes that we just addressed here, right? Still give you some pretty good opportunities there. All right, gang, I want to leave some time. I think we put 75 minutes on this one. We usually do an hour, and I'm like, I never do an hour, so let's just market these for 75 minutes from now on. But you see my contact info on there, our website, there's my email. We've got Q&A now. We'll go through the chat and the questions. I'll ask Keeg to throw out the questions. I'll do my best to answer quickly and efficiently. And if there are any slides that I need to go back to, please feel free to let us know, and I'm happy to do it. Those that have to take off, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And well, everybody, we appreciate you being here. So thank you for being here and sharing some time with us. And again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to start feeding them in. I'm not going anywhere. We appreciate you all. Thank you.
Why don't we start with so
yep.
Tank, push, and then give an alternative how you can do that.
So
so tank, push, pull, push away.
Yeah, the tank is a difficult one to replicate anywhere else because the uniqueness of this implement. As you can see, when I'm pushing on one finger, it only goes forward, okay, and backwards. If I'm on any other sled, a prowler, a lawn boy, any other sled, and I'm on here and I have any kind of disability or inability that makes me lean to one side or the other, that implement is going to pivot and I'm going to fall. That's why I like this one so much, is because it can only go forward, okay? So my dad came in here using a walker. He could not stand up straight and he couldn't take big steps. So for us to be able to get him up straight, to feel supported, and then be able to work through a triple extended position through his back, which this triple extension position, my hip, my knee, and my ankle, is the most athletic training position that I could ask him to get in, and it has the best return to it. So basically, I need something that's as stable as a walker that will hold him. It'll give resistance, and it'll allow me to work through this triple push, triple push, triple push position. Then to train his center of mass being low and to go backwards, which is where 70% of our falls occur, I can hang on to this and I can start to truck moving backwards. And then when I get back into position, I can lean in and triple extend, triple extend, triple extend, triple extend, ground reaction, and then drag it back. So in just 20 feet, I can train, let alone go outside and up and down the driveway or wherever we can go, okay? How can you replicate this somewhere else? You can't. This is an expensive piece of equipment. They're between $700 and $900 now, but you can replicate pushing actions and dragging actions with different bands or pulleys. Probably my favorite one, the dragging value, I would say for knee and lower back limited clients, is probably one of the best components you can give them. And you could set up, if you have a weight stack or a cable pulley, a universal machine, whatnot, they can basically grab onto a handle, maybe at hip height, grab onto the cable, hold onto the handles, and as you start to back away, just you take 80 pounds with you, and then you lower it back down. And you take 80 pounds with you, and you lower it back down. The value of dragging the weight stack up and putting it back down is it's still a constant load. So that value is there. I may not be able to go 20, 30, 40 feet like I can with this. You can use a band, you could use an NT loop, okay? Just, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can do that as far as like simulating the tank push. Yeah, you can do that too, taking a band over the hip and then they can drive forward. This now relies on the coach, hanging on to them, and so they're not going to fall down. Again, clients that are stable enough to handle something like that. I think this has been a missing piece for the aging population, and is why when I finally saw it, I was like, aha, like we have to have this, okay? It's such an important piece because we get clients like Janie, like Mary, like Linda, like Elaine, all of them that came in with canes or with walkers or need knee replacements or need hip replacements. They're not capable of performing the movement pattern that will get them better because they're not stable enough to hold themselves through that range of motion without falling down. But if I can put you on something that will keep you that stable and help you move you through it, right? Then we can train that action and they can get really good at it. So even though you just think like, I'm just pushing this thing across the driveway, like, let's just go out there and do that for 5 minutes. And every time they come here, they do that. Within a month, Janie was off her walker. Elaine doesn't use anything anymore now. She's all over the place. She's running all over the place. Linda's getting her knee fixed. Like we've made such great gains by utilizing this. That triple extension is such a vital, important piece to our training. Like it is athletic performance. These are just regular folks that are doing like regular life is their life performance. But why would we train them in any other fashion? If this would work great for an athletic performance-based athlete, an Olympian, a college football, etc. Triple extension is the thing. Cleans, pulls, snatches, all those are all triple extended movements. This is just their version of that triple extension.
Would you use a heart rate monitor during a workout?
I think you can use heart rate monitors anytime, all the time. I don't think it's a bad idea, especially if you have a client that has heart rate concerns or if you really want to target different heart rate zones. Zone 2 is kind of the one that where we're going to see the best cardiovascular response for aging bodies, that if they're going to go out and go on walks or rucks, whatnot. And then for higher intensities, HVRT, HIRT, HERT training, high velocity training, you're looking for zone 2, zone 3s that you want to peak at. For higher performance-based athletes, typically sprint-based or high endurance athletes, you're going to look for zones 4 and 5. You won't know any of those zones unless you can range them. The best example I can give you for this too is if you take two 50-year-old athletes, one has never trained and never conditioned, and the other one has trained their entire life. Are their heart rate zones going to be exactly the same? And the answer is no. The conditioned individual will typically have a lower resting heart rate and a much higher threshold
Mm-hmm.
And the deconditioned one's going to be the opposite. Yes.
But also that goes the same for conditioned athletes. The problem with heart rate training in a mass sense for me is that each person is vastly different,
Yep.
even if they're all in the same athletic performance. They can perform the same things, they can go the same tempo, their heart's going to be working differently. And that's an example between you and myself, is that we are vastly different. Unless you can get them to truly go and get an actual, very, very detailed heart rate scale done, then you're just ballparking with their heart rate.
Yeah. And again,
which is knowledge, but
yeah, all this is going to be individually personalized, but also generally speaking, the masses, unless you go and do one of these. And like Keegan has a uncommonly low resting heart rate and an way uncommonly high active heart rate. She goes from 40 beats a minute resting to 170 when she's running at like a level 5 out of her 10. Like she's just out for a jog and her heart rate's at 150, 160. Like it just runs high. And it's not like she's gassed and her heart's stressed. She's done all the tests. She's done all that. It's just how she operates, right? But she's a conditioned and trained athlete, and so am I. We're in two different abilities, ectomorph and, endurance, and endomorph and strength, but both trained. If you took mirror images of each of us that were deconditioned, those rates would be off. If you take two conditioned of those that are higher conditioned than us, those numbers would be off. The bottom line is you've got to have something to create measurability. And if that heart rate gives you consistent measurability, ideally the one that goes around the chest is going to be the best. The ones that go around the wrist, I think, are second. The ring, the Aura ring, and some of the other ones around the finger, or maybe it's the index finger now, they're getting better. I don't know if they're super reliable, but I know that they're consistent, meaning it'll give you a consistent score. I just don't know if it's the accurate score. Not as accurate as the one that goes around, your chest. So I think that's probably going to be the best bang for your buck, because not everybody likes wearing those. This is so easy, and it gives me a resting heart rate and my oxygenation level, and it gives me highs and lows, and it gives me all my zones. But are those exactly my actual ones? I don't know, and I don't think so. I don't think you can really get that super accurately from your wrist, but it will give me consistency every single time. So I can see over the course of 2 months, have I gotten better or worse? Has my heart rate gone up or down? Has my performance done better? It gives you something for consistency, and you've got great measurability there. Yeah, look at this. This is Keegan's weight training workout this morning. Weight training. 60 is a low, 173 is a high. Okay? That's her weight training. She's not even out running, guys. You know what I would have to do to myself to get a 173? I'd have to bear crawl up this hill, like sprinting on my hands and knees, and be gasping for air to get 173. And she's doing it with her mouth shut. That's just how her heart rate works, though. It's the weirdest shit. And she's not an anomaly. Like that is, I won't say it's common, but you'll find way more. Bob, we have 4 clients that we know of that have the same measurements like that. Conditioning Bob, little Bob is another one. We just had the exact same thing. We were just talking about it. Okay.
All right. So let's go this way.
Yep.
Can Robert clarify progression with regard to systems? For instance, in an Eric pad or a bench or going to.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever want to do single leg sit stands. That would be difficult. Well, I mean, like a box squat. Yes. Yeah, yes. Okay. So sit the stands, bilateral, high RX pads, 26 inches. I mean, you're going to be 26 inches is like that, right? So I'm going to be able to sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up. I'm 6'4", so that's a pretty short range. And then 24 inches and 22 and 20 and 18, and then 16 and 14 and 12, maybe. Okay, so there's just general progressions right there in mobility heights, meaning at some point, for me, it's 16 inches. When I hit 16 inches, which is about 4 inches below parallel for me, my tailbone's going to start to tuck no matter how hard I try. I can't keep a flat back, meaning not vertical, just still flat. I'm heavily hinged in, but I can't keep a flat lower back. I start to round. So there's no reason for me to go lower, not until I can establish better mobility. So what do we do now? Okay, now we start to load. And I'm a big fan of loading directly down in front, like holding like you're gonna do a deadlift, but you don't put the weight down, okay? You can put the weights down. We call those tillies, take it, leave it, but you don't have to. You can just hold the weight down low. Why not hold the weight up high? because the lower back is the direct counter load to the weight I'm holding up in front of me. If I have a weight up and in front of me, my lower back is the counter load to holding that. If I hold the weight down and in front, it's my up between my shoulder blades. So if I have lower back susceptibility and I'm working on my range of motion, and that's the spot that I'm most worried about hurting, I don't want to load that just opposite, right? So I'm going to hold weight low, and I'm going to work on my depth and work on my range of motion and improving my hip flexibility and my hamstring flexibility. And that'll eventually help me sit to stand lower and lower and lower until you get to a point where you're like, hey, we're 2 to maybe 4 inches below parallel. We don't really need to go any lower than that, right? I mean, unless the individual's like camping all the time and they have to be able to squat that low, or something that would demand them to have to squat lower. In just regular life, 2 inches to 4 inches below parallel is great. Then we can just start to progressively add load. Then you can start to do staggered stances. We did these today. We call them sprinter squats, where we start to stagger 1 foot and I'm up on my toe on the back leg. And so we can start to do these guys. The reason for the sit to stand is, instead of a dimmer, turn it down, turn it up, it's always on, right? The light's always on. It's either down or it's up, okay? That's a squat. Down and up. It's down, it's up. When I unload on the box, light switch off. When I stand up, light switch on. Light switch off, light switch on. Meaning you don't have the elastic slingshotty effect of the Golgi response of the muscle to say, fire back up. Every time you sit down, it shuts off. Everything stops. And now it's just pure muscle. Get back up, set it back down, shut it off. Pure muscle, get back up. It's the best ability for you to get someone strong quickly is by shutting it off every time. Where air squatting, right? They don't sit down, they don't rest, they just squat, return. That'll give you a better cardiovascular response, better dynamic response, better power-based response, all the other things. But if we're just like, get strong now, work on depth, work on adding load, and then work on your ability to produce maximal strength every time getting out of the box, out of the deep squats with a moderate load. Unload and then drive up quick, and then eccentric, unload, drive up quick. Like, it gives great return, okay? Then you can start to stagger the stance like we just showed you there, and we can start to give some susceptibility to the knees. And then eventually you can do a single leg out in front of you, like a single leg up and then end, or a controlled down and then drop the heel, stand back up, and then an eccentric controlled down, like something along those lines. Or you could do a prop squat where the one leg's just propped, it's just sitting there. So I'm not really using it, but I don't have to like actively hold it up in front of me either. I mean, there are lots of additional options that you can do that will start to give you unilateral strength on those. But eventually getting to a split squat is probably going to be the best option. And that's where they'll start to work to the floor. As you get better at that, step ups would then follow. Oh yeah, in select, like everything I just said right there in 2 minutes, there's hours of teaching and all the cues and everything you need in there. Like, it's how you get to each one. And oh yeah, select basically gives me a chance to go through all that stuff, fine tooth comb for you, rather than trying to answer it right now in 2 minutes, but gives you a good idea.
Assessments conduct prior to.
Okay, basic quick assessments. We do O's and heart rate on the finger monitor. We do grip strength. We do a standing hinge and reach with a measurement tool along the wall. We do a sit to stand test, 30 second. And then we do a sit to stand test endurance. And that endurance is based on what I feel like the person in front of me is capable of. Typically, it'll be a minute or 50, whichever comes first. And then I'll do a gait assessment, watching them walk. Got a whole presentation on that, guys. And I think it's really good. And I think it's a great assessment tool to use. It's just hard to do it. The best way to do it is to chalk their feet and let them walk across the ground and not know what you're doing. And then you go back and measure the whole thing. Anyway, I spent a whole hour going through that. Damn, that doesn't tell you a lot. It tells you a lot. If you do those, whatever that was, 6 things, 7 things, I think you have some really good answers of the person in front of you. And then we'll do some type of band chest pull just to see how their shoulders function. But I've got a pretty good idea how they locomote, how they walk back and forth. I've got a pretty good idea how their hips work. I've got a pretty good idea what kind of grip strength and overall health they're in. I have a good idea of how their heart rate and their oxygenation level is working. I have a pretty good idea of how their range of motion is. And then I've got a short cardiovascular test to see how their lungs, how their heart's working, how that's going. I think it gives me a pretty good idea, in 30, 40 minutes, what's in front of me, plus all the Q&A, everything else we go through with them.
Back to that question, can you clarify using dominant exercise versus hip dominant exercise? For instance, doing a squat followed by a hard deadlift.
Yeah, I don't really know if I understand what you mean by knee dominant versus hip dominant. We're going to utilize the knees and the hips in both. And so where I want to, where we progress that is if I am horizontal, laying on the floor, and I'm bridging, that's a hinge at the hip. And there's a flex knee, but the range of motion at the knee is really limited. It's not moving much. It's basically stuck at 45 degrees, okay? And then if I stand up and I start doing traditional hinges, RDLs, then I don't have a whole lot of knee range of motion either, but I'm still hinging. And then I would progress that into some sit to stand. So I'm going to hinge at the hip, but also break at the knee, okay? And then I'm going to get really good at sit to stands. And as I lower that depth, I'll eventually start to pull weight off the floor. So those are kind of our 4 hip/knee progressive movements. We bridge, we hinge, we sit to stand, and then we deadlift. And so if I can do those 4, in a month or 2 months or whatever it takes, I feel like you'll do your client a fair justice of progressing them appropriately, but you'll also equally kind of improve their ability and their strength via the hip and the knee. And most people that you're going to get, their hip strength is going to be rather limited, and their knee strength is going to be overly dominant. I have yet to run into a person that wasn't quad knee dominant, either overly glute developed or over ham developed, like not even close. Most people are 80-20, right? Like you might find a former track sprinter who you're like, okay, you're 60-40. This is the closest I've ever got. But like, are you ever going to find someone that's 50-50? No. Almost everybody is just overly quad knee dominant. So if I can ease up on how much we quad dominate them and start to really emphasize the idea of developing, building their glutes and their hamstrings and working that backside and hinging them more efficiently, I think you're going to do them pretty good service and not abuse their knees any more than they may already be, but also start to seek muscular equality around the knee and the hip that should give them a really good return.
Hip dominant and consider hinging, and then knee dominant consider, even though you use both, squatting. But what about those people that you see when they squat and they go, if they're not really moving their knees, they're just like, they're doing this to get the depth. They think that's it. Their butt's so high. Like, what is
versus like kind of a heel elevated toe vertical squatter.
Like, because I personally noticed after going to Dan, our physical therapist, like, and really working on my squat technique, that I probably wasn't dropping my hips low enough, which really was actually because of knee soreness. I wasn't bending the knees more. So like the mindset of changing my squat technique from more hip to actually like being like, oh yeah, bend your knees, Keegan. You're supposed to be bending your knees during this movement.
Yeah, and you're also an individual where we took a lot of care and effort in developing your glutes to help you get strong for not only your sports performance but your after sport performance. Like as a javelin thrower, that was a big thing for her, was to have strong legs, but that we knew the power had to come from her hips and her glutes. So we emphasized that a lot. And in doing that, we didn't address her quads probably as much as we should have, which ultimately ended up leading to her knees being more susceptible. So she needed more quad dominant movement, which means a more vertical posture when squatting, so she could develop more quad strength. So if someone tells me that they're using they're more knee dominant or hip dominant, what I hear is I'm more of a quad dominant individual. I'm abusing my knees, quote unquote, versus I need to develop my glutes or my hips more. I'm weaker there, so I'm more of a hip dominant person.
You can almost associate knee dominant with stronger quads and hip dominant with stronger back.
Correct. You just don't see a ton of people with stronger butts than quads. It's pretty rare. You grew up with a butt focused coach who knew his hips fell apart because I didn't train my glutes. So at the earliest ability, we had everybody doing bridges,
Is there a preference to upper body posture during a squat? Would you have people avoid that forward lean, or what?
I mean, as far as you were just demoing, that's excessively forward, right? But I think there's a vertical squatting position for sure where you are definitely emphasizing a lot of quad. I'd say 70 to 80%. You're just overly vertical, and the knees will push to the toe line, if not beyond, which is okay. It's okay to let your knees go beyond your toes. Yeah.
Like walking back like that.
Correct. Yeah, and that's not ideal. Like you want the freedom of that movement, but it'll put you in a more vertical position. As long as your heels are staying on the ground, it's totally fine for your knees to drift and go forward beyond your toes. But there is a happy medium, I'd say around 45 to 50%, or 45 to 50 degrees where your torso is tilted in, and you're able to displace your hips about as even as you're able to counter your chest forward, kind of giving you an equal balance of quad, hamstring, glute, to a below or slightly below parallel squat, which is kind of the goal for us to all get to. But everybody's going to be different, and you're going to have to troubleshoot that person in front of you. I'm finding that I'd rather posturally adjust people more vertical than elevate their heels, because I think your heel elevation is a manipulation of mechanics that doesn't actually get them better at doing that. It gets you the desired result. They're going to feel more quad, but not because they're more vertical. They're getting more quad because you just elevated their heels. By elevating the heel, you shorten their Achilles. That shortens the stretch cycle on their gastroc. That gastroc overlaps the hamstrings. The hamstrings overlaps the glutes, and ultimately allows them to squat like 2 inches deeper, which puts more pressure on their quad, stretching the quad over the top of the patella. So yeah, I feel more quad, but did you get there because you stretched your quads more, or you shortened your Achilles and the backside more, right? Like you're giving up one to accomplish the other. I think I'm traveling outside the frame of the question a little bit, but it's very common to see people elevate their heels now. And it's like, unless you're going to lift in training platform shoes like Olympic lifters all the time, you're doing yourself a disservice. I would rather you stay heel dominant on the floor, midfoot heel dominant on the floor, and then posturally adjust your body more upright and allow your knees to drift forward. It's a healthier posture and a healthier range for your knees to go through. It increases range at the ankle. It increases ability and strength resistance of toe dominance on the ground. It increases your Achilles flexibility. It pre-stretches the quad around the top of the patella. It eccentrically stretches your glutes and your hamstrings around the backside of your body. And if you hold the posture in the right position, eccentrically focuses on strength training the erectors of the spine and your QL, quadratus labrum, to keep you more upright. And if you're goblet squatting while you're doing that whole thing, you're getting even stronger in the core. So like, it just makes a hell of a lot more sense to do that than to just put plates under your heels.
So something that we can all follow a little bit here. Nobody asked this, but there are so much go on, and I thought that it was a very interesting progression to give gate step with the use of the stick, bands, how you get it. I feel like the one of those progressions of the gate that having to walk in is really one of my favorite progressions to do. Of using setbacks, maybe like a long stride, pull, and
Yeah, so a gait progression based on stick support and band support. Okay. There's 3 different stabilizers that you can utilize when asking someone to perform a gait range of either a step, a split squat, or a step up. The first one would be to put their hand against the wall. And now I'm holding on to something that's so solid and so stable that I don't have to stabilize myself anymore. I can just take steps and alternate my feet, and I'm not going to go anywhere. I just feel real comfortable here. And I can do short steps, big steps. I can do forward or back, whatever. But I'm hanging on to something that's really stable. The next one is to hold on to a stick that will give me some support, but I have to stabilize the stick. So from there, I can do a forward step, or I can do a drop step, and I'll go through those in a moment. But then that would progress to hanging on to a band. And then the band can give you steering support. I can still kind of use it to help steer me, but I can also use it to adjust how hard I have to work. The further I drop back, the more the band will help me. So now I could actually go through deeper ranges of motion, deeper ranges than I'm actually capable of doing. Because if this is a 60-pound band and I'm 200 pounds, at the bottom of my lunge here, I'm only like 140 now because the band is pulling me up and back to where I want to be. My point being is you can have 3 different variations of ways to stabilize someone to help them change their gait or change their postural positions in multiple different directions. And it just depends on which one of these tools will kind of best address their ability of where they are now. So if they come in and they're not using a cane or a walker, we don't have to use the tank. They can stand here, but they have a really hard time. They can't do lunges, they can't do split squats, they can't do step-ups yet. What could we do with them? Well, you can use any of these, the wall, the stick, or the band, or any combo of those to help them start to improve it. And in my opinion, the drop step is probably the best one. So I'll just kind of give you a base understanding of that. Contralaterally, it's going to be the most supportive, meaning I'm going to hold to my right, and I'm going to drop my right foot behind me and then return to standing. And I want my client to just get comfortable throwing their foot back, but notice my center of mass is going to drop a little bit every time I do that. And as I continue to increase the distance and I start to feel a little more confident with each one of those, yeah, I'm using my arm to help me, but I'm also getting deeper than I would normally. If I didn't have this, I would only be able to take this step without buckling and kind of falling. So eventually, hopefully they can do a quarter or split squat or something along those lines. And I'm the one that's still creating the stability. I'm the one holding the stick, but I do have something to assist me in giving a greater range of motion than I could do without it. So then I could maybe hold on to a weight while I do this and work through that same range. That'll give me a better range of motion because I have the stick. It'll give me a false sense, but a better sense of stability because I have the stick. But I'm also going to overload this range by holding extra weight in my hand, which will get me stronger. So if I do that 2, 3, 4 times in multiple different workouts, and then I come back and say, let's get rid of this guy, and let's see if my false stability, but better range of motion and overload training gave me a better ability to at least drop step in return. Well, yeah, this is an improved ability that I've now built. And we'll continue to do that same thing that we just talked about, okay? Better range of motion with the stick, with load, and then change the range of motion deeper and deeper and deeper. And you just keep laddering that over and over and over again until they can do a drop step lunge all the way down to a knee on both sides, with or without weight. Now we can get up on the floor. We can get up from the floor on either leg. We can get up from the floor with something in our hands if we needed to, right? Which is now a Turkish get up or whatever we want to do with it. But just getting up and down off the ground is going to be challenging enough for a lot. So you kind of take the ultimate goal and you reverse engineer that back so they are able to do each movement pattern. But you can't shy away from the understandings of the said principle and being able to specifically adapt to an imposed demand. The range of motion, the extra stability, the overload. Continue to address those 3 things until they've built this new ability now. And eventually you can start to kind of remove those. These are the ladders. These are the steps that I would do with any other movement if I wanted to bench press or pull up or do anything else. It's the same thing. You just got to know what steps to do. And if you don't know, that's what we're here for. Like that's why I'm here. Why we do all this stuff is to teach you all this stuff. You know, like I don't know how to get my client away from their walker, their cane, from being in a wheelchair. Like we're not here to do physical therapy and to help people rehabilitate. You know, like you're cured we're not here for that. We're here to help build strength that's lacking. And if that strength gets improved, they're going to be more capable. 80 to 85% of the time, that's the problem. They're just too weak to perform it. And I personally don't believe that you're ever at an age where increasing strength is not an option. Maybe when terminal, maybe something like that. You're at the end and it's just like your body's fighting itself. Other than that, I think people can get better. I think they always can. I watched it. I watched my family members do it. I've watched my clients do it. Even someone who was terminal. 2 of them got better, drastically better. So I think it's just knowledge is power here, and this is something that we have a Liam Neeson particular set of skills in, right? We've had opportunities to put people through this stuff and we know that they work. That's what Select is all about, is taking what I just showed you right there too. But I mean, we've got 80 of those guys. Like there's a bunch of them. Yeah.
On that, yes, what all show.
Sure. Yeah, I know we're running way long here, but you can head over to our YouTube as well. And I've got highlights in there where I kind of take you through Select and I show all this. But right when you come in, here's our certification. And so that's 12 chapters, self-paced. You can go through all these, go through each one. We teach you everything, you know, that you need to know to train anybody really over the age of 30, 35, but specifically over the age of 50. And then we have a little test for you. And then when you're done with that, the rest of this is just basically a giant search engine to help you with whatever and everything that you ever need to know. So our movement observation, if you ever want to go through that, basically our assessment from coach to coach, but every little piece of that all the way down, how we do each one of the assessments also is all in the test, but we are in the certification, but I like to break them out here so you can see them independently. And then we've got all the different movement patterns, all the hinges, all of our rows. And these are pages deep, guys. So they just show you the first 10, but you know, there's 40, 50 of each of these. And so we go through all those, all the mobilities. There's 300 and something different exercises and mobilities in there. And then every month we put up new content, if not one, multiple different videos on anything from, here's our stick supported movements right here. That's the deep dive on everything I just showed you with the stick right there, to training clients with bunions, right? I mean, we've got stuff on everything. Lower back pain. Where's the bunion one? I just did that one. Lower back pain, throwing out my back, timed up and go, different assessments there. I mean, we've got tons of stuff for you to kind of look at, any of those. And then we've got all kinds of different downloads and templates, all of our archived content, basically any course certification, anything that we have done in the past. I'm going to show you a ton. Business, programming, hours of stuff, like anything you need, anatomy. So people see this and they're like, oh my gosh, how overwhelming. You don't have to go through every one of these. The whole point is this. If you come in here and you go, all right, I'm TOA certified. I've got a client who has a bad back. Go up here to the search engine, type in back and hit enter. And here's physical limitations on throwing out your back, deep dive, clients with lower back, strategies for training with lower back. Whatever you need to know, there's what you need to know about training people with lower back, okay? Oh, I got a client that's got a shoulder issue. All right, let's put in shoulder. We'll put that one in, shoulder. Punch that in, okay? There's all the stuff you need to know for shoulders. I've got a client who is going through cancer treatment. Put in cancer. What do we got on this one? Nothing. Way to go, Rob. Good one. Overhead range of motion. Not my area of expertise, right? Overhead, let's put that one in. Okay, here's all kinds of different stuff for going overhead, right? So basically, I want you to be prepared, have a place to search for information with any ailment for the most part that comes your way. And I was kidding about the cancer ones. Like there's so many different variations of that, but we have on arthritis, on carpal tunnel, we have so much stuff in there. And a lot of them too, like my back surgery one, I interviewed my surgeon. The lady that did my hip surgeries, I interviewed her. That's in there. Like we go out and we find the experts. Dan McLean's on every anatomy one that we have on there, teaching the physical therapy components, 3 exercises you could do to help your clients from a therapeutic side. Also, they go in with our resistance training side. So you get a hand-in-hand approach, even though you might not have a physical therapist that you work with, you've got one that's advising you on there. So we have hours of stuff on there. I mean, 1,800 plus hours worth of stuff. You don't need to go through every one. The point is when you need the information, it's there. And you can just search for it and find whatever you need. And that's kind of the goal, is I want it to be a support system for whatever comes your way. And as you grow, you get more experience working with clients that have those limitations. These become areas of expertise for you. You know, I'm kind of known for working with people with hips and back issues because I've had my hips and my back issues. And through that expertise and the years of doing it, just more people start to come. It might be whatever it might be for you. You know, these are all things that we want you to be well prepared. And with every person, you get another opportunity to do that. So as always, I always want you to feel like you got good stuff from this. I hope you did. There's quite a few of you still on here. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for all the questions and for being here, spending 90 plus minutes with us now. If there's anything else that we could do for you, if you have any other questions, let us know. We are going to send out the PDFs after this. Everybody should get an email with the link to the recording as well too. Are we doing that? Yeah. So that'll,
3 hours.
yeah, perfect. That'll all come out in a couple of hours here for you. So you'll be able to access that there. And I think that's it. Keegan gave you quite a few links for videos. Good job, love. Everything on here. All right, everybody. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. I love to chat and I love getting opportunities to do this. So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, everyone. Elizabeth, thank you. We appreciate you being here. As always, I can give you back money or a product, but you can't give people back their time. You spend 90 minutes with us. I hope you got really good actionable things that made it worth it to you. And by continuing to come back, I think that answers our question that you are getting good things. So thank you for being here, letting us know that you like this and that this is actionable information. If there's anything we can do for you, like I said, let us know. We're always here, happy to help. And our TOA Select members, we'll see you inside Select, all of our new monthly content that we put out. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Take care.